That was me.
Okay, so the recording should be going.
All right. Okay, good evening, everyone. And welcome to the New Shoreham Town Council meeting for Wednesday, June 24th, 2020. The New Shoreham Town Council will meet via telecommunications pursuant to the State of Rhode Island Executive Order 2025, dated April 15th, 2020. We have several participants who will be speaking, and there are two ways to comment if you're listening outside of the participants. You send your comments and questions in 12 hours before the meeting to townclerk@newshoreham.com, new-shoreham.com. They will be printed out and have been distributed to the council. And you can register to speak by phone during the meeting by emailing the number of the phone you'll be using, your name and your organization if you're representing any, to the town clerk at new-shoreham.com 12 hours before the meeting, and instructions will be mailed back. We have several items on the agenda tonight. I believe, though, the last two items on the agenda, the two items for potentially going into executive session are unnecessary. Is that right, Jim?
That's correct.
Okay, so we'll only be dealing with the first four items on the agenda. So the first item on the agenda for the evening is this continued item, and that is a public hearing, continued public hearing on the New Shoreham fiscal year 2021 budget. I believe we've continued it to tonight to give anyone the opportunity who might have comments or questions from our previous hearing to raise those. Does anyone know of any that anyone has concerning the proposed budget? I
Yes,
believe we have some correspondence from the Chamber of Commerce, from Cindy Lasser. Is Cindy on with us this evening? Perhaps not. Basically, someone knocking to come in.
I can.
There's Cindy. Thank you, Cindy. Hi.
I hear you
Hi,
now.
I'm really sorry about the other night to all of you. Thank you that I missed it.
Oh, no problem. I just brought up the fact that we have a letter from you referencing the proposed assistance to the visitor center.
Yes, thank you.
We have a copy of it. Basically, what you've highlighted in the letter and delineated from the town. I believe in the current budget proposal has a line item for $10,000, and you're requesting $15,850. Is that correct?
I didn't hear what you said. I'm sorry. It was garbled.
Okay. Hold on. Sorry. The I believe in the draft of the budget we were looking at, the amount for the visitor center was at $10,000. And in your
Yes.
letter, the next to last paragraph in your letter, you define that you're requesting a total of $15,850, assisting with half the rent and $10,000 to fund the tourist agents. Is that correct?
That is correct. Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Cindy on that item? Sven Riesen?
Cindy, maybe you could just, for all the people on the phone, maybe you could just do a quick review of the total budget and sources of the budget, and how discussions went with some of those sources.
Whoops, I can't hear you anymore.
So in other words, I just would like, I know you asked for a certain amount of money. I'm thinking about everybody on the phone who doesn't have a copy necessarily of your note. Could you just sort of review the total budget? I think you met with the Tourism Council. They contributed in and just sort of help everybody come up to speed.
No, I have not gone to the Tourism Council this year. I can't hear you anymore. It's terrible. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not hearing anything you're saying. I'm so sorry.
Where is Cindy?
I'm home.
Then how are you hearing
Can
Mark?
Can you hear me, Cindy?
Yes, I can, Martha. Thank you.
Can you hear anybody else?
No,
Can you
Is
hear
anybody
me?
else talking?
no,
Are you on a phone, Cindy?
yes, I am. I'm on a cell phone, iPhone.
So am I.
Ken, do you want her to call back from a landline?
Yeah, I could try that.
No, I was only asking that because my internet's been terrible today.
Cindy?
Cindy, I'm gonna
Yes.
invite you from the landline. Hang up, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Chris.
Do we have any of the supporting finance material from the Chamber of Commerce to support the request? Because I have nothing. I mean, every department or every outside entity that asks for money has to submit an application with the supporting finance information.
Amy, can you answer that question? Amy Land?
Sure, I actually can't, in that this request was handled a little bit outside of the normal finance function. So I don't have those materials at all.
Okay.
Cindy,
Hi,
are you back
can
in?
everyone hear me?
Yes?
Oh, I'm really sorry about that. Sven, you were saying, something about the tourism, sorry.
I guess, one, if you could help us with the total budget and the requests that you had at the beginning of the year. My understanding was that that some of the money came from Tourism Council. You asked for some money from the Town Council. There was $10,000 budgeted, but I guess if you could review that for everybody on the phone, and then also help, Chris just asked a question, if you could help us just understand, did you actually submit a budget for it, or what's the background? So maybe you could paint the overall picture and help us with what was submitted for a request.
Well, last year I came before you to ask for a $30,000 request for payroll, and it was denied. We were going to share it. I thought 10 from the town, 10 from us, 10 from the tourism. The town did pay for half of our rent. Our rent is $11,700. And then you asked me to please go to the tourism board, which I did, and they kindly gave us $5,000. This year, and we were right on the money last year with that it was $30,000 in payroll. I just am asking for 10 this year. Again, 10 for the town, 10 for the tourism, 10 for us. And I wanted to offer also, ask for half the rent. I'm not sure. I have not gone to the Tourism Council yet. I know that things are tough for them too, also this year. So I was just going to see how it went here first. I feel like we're all partners in this. we're the first line of defense when people come off the island. We answer questions all day long. The phone is ringing off the wall constantly. Things are changing constantly. That's sort of where we are with it. I just feel a partnership with the town and that building and us.
Thank you, Cindy. Chris, did you want to direct your question to Cindy now that she's here? Chris? No, you muted, Chris.
No, she answered it. She just went through it. Last year, the Tourism Council gave her 10, the town, and I thought the town did 10 as well as half the rent. I just want to be clear on what happened last year.
Okay, all right.
And
It was,
then-
excuse me.
Keep going, Cindy, sorry.
No, it was 5 from the tourism and none from the town.
So the town contributed something,
Half our rent.
Just the
Yeah.
rent, Chris.
right?
That's the way I understand it. This is Jim Kern. The town decided to allow half of the rent, waive
Right.
half.
And so this year, as the budget stands, we have, as I said before, I believe the line item is $10,000 for the visitor center. But Amy, there is no allowance for the half of the rent. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you, Jim.
The other, for Chris, I was about to answer this before Cindy got in. I do believe there's a document, I can't get it to you right now, but there's a document identifying the staff, the amount of staff salary that Cindy referred to. I can circulate that.
No,
Go ahead,
for
Cindy.
June, yes, for June, July, and August, yes. 1 second. It was $29,650. Already, June is almost over, and it's not that at all. I mean, it's much less than that because it's still, we haven't even hired anyone new yet. We just haven't had the people. We're also, I wanted to discuss also our shared locker experience, which we are all well aware of. And this year, because they never got fixed and just we were sort of on our way, we had a locksmith looking at it. We were looking at possibly doing something new with the building and new lockers. It never happened. And as a result of the way things are with COVID right now, I cannot send employees out to the locker room to help people with lockers because it's a hot, steamy situation out there. People, it's just so close. People are on top of people. There's all kinds of different stages of undress and beach clothes, and it's just not dangerous. I mean, it's just dangerous. So that was a substantial amount of income that we will not be getting this year. Also, I know that the locker, the money put away, the $12,000 has now gone back into the general fund, I believe, because it just wasn't. It's not going to be used, and I'm in agreement with Amy on that. I mean, why not just put it back in? But it is there. I saw. Yeah.
Chris, Willie?
I mean, as far as the lockers are concerned, I know they weren't fixed, but hypothetically, if they were, I would think that isn't even something that would be allowed to be open because of the COVID situation. So that's kind of a moot point. The other thing is, Cindy, understandably, I understand you're busy, but every business out here has had to modify their business plan and basically cut expenses. The town is doing that. It's had to. And adding $5,000 to a visitor center when I don't know any visitor center in the state that's actually open right now. Anything that's supported by tourism dollars or tax dollars. I don't know any that are open. Maybe some of the Chamber of Commerce ones are open, but I'm not sure of any tax funded visitor centers that are open in the state. But yeah, I mean, what I'm getting at is I don't see giving $5,000 when our police department isn't getting raises, our teachers aren't getting raises, our town employees aren't getting raises. We've had to cut capital expenses. I mean, I understand the situation you're in, but everybody else is in the same situation.
And I understand that too. Thank you.
Jess Willie?
Can you hear me?
Now I can.
Sorry, thanks. I'm looking at my budget, and I just wanted to clarify for those on the line, the Tourism Council gave the Chamber of Commerce $10,000 last fiscal year. We did not receive a request this year, and it is not in our budget for 2021.
Thank you, Jess.
Oh, and thank you, Jess. I misspoke on the 5. Sorry, I was told that today from the bookkeeper. Sorry about that.
Any other comments from the Sven, go ahead.
Yeah, so let me just make sure, right now, if I remember when Ed and we were doing all of that, the half the rent. So right now, we are giving significantly more, the town is giving significantly more than they did last year. But based on what Jess just said, it's not in the budget for tourism, and we all understand that that's budget's been, to say the least, impacted. So Cindy, maybe given where the budget is now, it looks like, you know, between Chamber and the town being 10,000, you know, to Chris's point, you got to sort of rework the budget a bit, I guess. And Amy, there's no relief in for the rent, right? So that's sort of where we are from an overall point of view. Is that correct, Amy? Land?
Yes and no. Technically, the rent historically has been 11,700. What we have in there for fiscal year 21 is 10,000. There's a small reduction there for 21. But no, it's not a full relief.
If I could. The plan there, Sven, given everything that's going on, enter into a 1-year agreement with the chamber for $10,000 this year. There's a number of things up in the air, including the potential renovation of the building. So a 10-year at 10,000, and give the assistance of 10,000 with the reduced staff and a reduced budget. That was my thinking, so that get through this year and hopefully be situated to start the conversations we were having before the virus destroyed everybody's budgets.
Thank you.
Further
No.
comments or questions or concerns? Anyone?
I have a question
Martha, go ahead. Thank you.
for Cindy. Cindy,
Yes.
how is the volume of telephone calls and such been this year compared to last?
Many, many, many more. It's constant. And people are just, excuse me?
That was the impression that I had just from looking at things on social media, that everybody is looking for something, and most people are getting fed up and saying, call the chamber, because there's too much misinformation out there. And I think you're bearing the brunt of all the misinformation, that people just think they're being helpful and they're not.
I mean,
I do think that it's very, I think it's, you can say everything's going down. It seems like you've probably got more going on.
I think we did. We were busy. We were so busy all winter. It never stopped. So yes, no, that's true. And we're happy to help people. But it's most of the calls. People have no idea that they can travel here. They just they're not getting the message that that they can come and go shopping and go to the beach and eat dinner. They honestly were wondering when is Block Island opening?
That's interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad they're calling though. They're very happy when they get off the phone.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Martha.
I know we have no money. I just thought it was important to get that out there.
No, and I appreciate all of you. Thank you. You've done I've had a great time working together through this whole thing with you, and I think everybody's done a really good thing for the town, and I think that you guys have been way ahead of things as far as planning, especially for our seasonal workers and things. It was a nice job, but I completely understand and get it, and thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Cindy. Any other comments or questions on the fiscal year 2021 budget as part of this public hearing on it?
I don't.
Anyone? Amy, were we intending to continue this to another night?
Yes, I would recommend that the council keep the public hearing open. We are waiting for final agreement between the unions and the towns.
Yep.
And so it makes sense to keep the public hearing open until we have a definitive way to move forward.
Okay. All right.
Ken,
Jim, go ahead.
real quickly, just to answer the question that's in people's heads, there are meetings scheduled for late this week. Right?
Monday.
And then into early next week for the collective bargaining units to vote.
Okay. All right. Then I'll make a motion to continue this public hearing to our next, can we extend it to our next regular meeting, Amy? That'd be the first week of July?
Are you thinking the 6th?
Yeah, that's what I
Is
mean.
that your next regular?
Yeah.
Do you have a scheduled meeting prior to that?
We have a meeting July 1st with broadband.
Yeah, well, that's a work session, so, but,
Yeah, I would recommend continuing it to the 1st if possible,
okay.
so that we can meet some of the state filing requirements that we need to adhere to.
Okay. I'll make a motion to continue this public hearing until July 1st.
Second.
Second by Andre, I believe.
Yes.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor, Andre?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
I would vote in the affirmative. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you all. Thank you, Amy. This public hearing will be continued until the July 1st. Next item on the agenda is approval of the warrant for the July 27th, 2020 financial town meeting. We have a draft in our packet. I guess, Amy, the first question I have to ask is, we will be able to have the financial town meeting at the school?
Yes, we believe we will. We're working on the specifics and the logistics around conducting that meeting, but we are moving ahead on that path.
Okay. And that's based on the parameters that have been established by the state?
Yes, we have their phase 2 guidance for municipal public meetings, and we'll be adhering to those either as they stand or as they may be amended. And so we're preparing for a primary location with some overflow space should our participation be require that.
Okay.
And
Any
so there will be,
Go ahead. I'm
if
sorry.
you don't mind, we will publish all of that guidance so that people are familiar with it, but includes masks, includes appropriate distance. We'll be setting out chairs in a way that encourages or forces people into the right amount of space. And we may have some additional accommodation for those who may be, feel like they need even more room to maneuver. But we'll be publishing that as we get closer. and work out the details. Hopefully we can maintain a safe environment for everyone.
Okay. Any questions or comments on the proposed warrant?
Who has to read it?
Oh, you're gonna make him read it?
I meant
I
at the
will
meeting, not
volunteer to-
now.
It's a public document.
I meant at the meeting,
There-
not now.
That would be the, wouldn't that be the moderator? And we
There
have,
are a couple things.
Go ahead, Amy, please.
There are a couple things I would like to walk the council through and identify for you, and maybe you have some input on, but I can wait till Andre's question.
Are those the highlighted things on the draft?
Mhm. Yes.
Okay, well, why don't we do that?
Sure. The first deals with the broadband question, and we're obviously still working on that language. What we're doing tonight is talking through a draft warrant. We're not going to be finalizing this evening. But the position of that question, I think something the council should consider in light of minimizing large gatherings. We may have a large number of people who are interested particularly in this question, and we may want to consider moving it ahead of the regular business of the meeting so that those people who may be less interested in our ordinary financial town meeting process aren't required to stay, and so that we can minimize the crowd. I invite everyone to stay, but for those who might not be interested, we can move people through as quickly as possible. So I would recommend we traditionally put borrowing questions afterwards, but moving that up to the front because there may be particular interest in that question.
And that's basically where it is in the draft.
It is, and none of these need to be decided tonight, but we should be thinking about it, I think.
No, I think that's an excellent idea. Those things too often get lost.
Okay.
The next two highlighted paragraphs are actually after the regular business of the town. I believe it's page 3.
Yeah.
And those are the two questions related to the water main project on High Street. Just to remind you why this is showing up as two questions, because the town council had supported the concept of the broader tax base contributing 25% of the total project cost. That's represented by the first question for $330,308. That's 25% of the project. The balance of the project would be borne by the ratepayers of the water company. However, in order to make that happen, if the first question were not to be successful, meaning the taxpayers didn't support contributing, the water ratepayers would then be asked to fund the entire amount. So in the second paragraph, $1,321,232 actually represents the entire project cost. If the first question is successful, we will amend that number down to reflect the balance of 75%. I'm not sure if that's clear, but I can say it again if we need to.
Does anyone have any questions on that?
And then the third highlighted paragraph right below is a request to authorize general obligation borrowing up to $1 million to finance road and bridge work. This would be in addition to $1 million that was authorized in 2019. It's not necessarily the most opportune time to be asking for that kind of money. However, it is an add-on, again, to an existing project. This is specifically identifying the town roads of Pilot Hill, Connecticut Ave, and Old Town Road. The surveys are underway at this point. And part of the opportunity here, if you will, is to piggyback where possible on the paving that will already be done with the water main project, if we are able to realize any savings out of that. We don't yet have the breakdown between the three projects. The first priority would be Pilot Hill. And again, since we're going to be working on that side of the island, timing those two things becomes important. You know, again, could you wait you could in theory, but there may be some opportunity for savings by having that authority in hand today. We typically finance these through the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank, which allows us to take a 30% discount to the market rates, which has proven beneficial to us. But again, I wanted to put that question in front of you so that we can talk more about it if you have concerns. But again, it is the second part of a project we had identified previously.
I know, I guess this may not be the time to talk about specifics of it, but are these repavings or are these new paving projects?
Yeah, it's a little bit to be determined in that they're working out the engineering of just how much, you're going to make me talk roads, and this is not obviously my area, but exactly how much rebedding needs to be done. The sense is that Old Town Road may be requiring the most amount of work, meaning you may have to take it all the way down. The other two may only require a more moderate amount of milling. I can certainly get you more specifics on the engineering behind those.
I think we just,
but they're working.
obviously we just need them for the discussion, have a good discussion about it that night, I think, so.
And alongside both of those is not just the road itself, but the drainage along the sides.
Yeah. Sven Reeson?
Amy or maybe Jim, one of the other things that we talked about was paving up at the airport. I am sure RIAC is as low in budget and needs as anybody given travel. But that was also one of those pairings, Amy, that had been discussed to try and gain efficiency. I guess my gut says adding $1 million on now versus waiting a year. I hear the efficiencies, but it may be a tough one, just because the broadband first, and then the water, and then the roads. It's so we should think about, I guess, timing.
And if it's helpful, I can bring back the next time we discuss it more of the engineering specifics on the program and what the upside and downside of deferring a year would be.
Okay. So Amy, given the discussion we've been having, you're not expecting us to approve the warrant for this evening, correct?
Absolutely not.
Right.
Nope.
All right. Further questions or comments on the warrant proposal? Sven, go ahead.
Yeah, and Martha mentioned this also. I would support, just from a planning point of view, doing broadband first, taking a break, and then, that would be my druthers. I think you're exactly right. And I do think it simplifies it, like Martha said. So I would support that if that helps you in planning.
Okay. Any further comments or questions? Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
I would assume that this is going to also want to appear on that the meeting on the 1st.
I think we would actually hold it because we'll have a very detailed discussion on the 1st, and we'll probably need to digest the information we hear there. The warrant needs to be posted and finalized 10 days before the meeting. So we have a little bit of time between the 1st and the final posting.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is to discuss an act on possible amendment to the emergency ordinance of the town of New Shoreham adopted May 27, 2020, pertaining to COVID-19, including the wearing of masks in public. Anyone like to start the conversation? I'd like to maybe call.
Okay.
Yes, Martha, go ahead. Oh, no, Catherine, I see it. I'm sorry, Martha, is that you?
Yeah, I had, all I wanted, if Kathy's going to say something, I just wanted to ask for clarity that the ordinance that Kathy, may I address Kathy? Okay, I will.
I'm
I'll
here.
let Kathy prepared. appears to mirror the emergency order of the governor. Is that correct?
Yes, it does. The major difference is the requirement of wearing masks inside of establishments, grocery store, regardless of the ability to maintain the social distancing. The other part of it is obviously that the town is supposed to be enforcing it. And once in place, this particular ordinance, if the governor amends, that would still be in effect. That was sort of my understanding of what I was to prepare from last time, but it's a draft and the rest is up to you.
Catherine?
Hello?
Hello?
Hello, this is Gloria. I don't know if I'm able to speak.
Okay, go ahead, Gloria Redley.
Okay, I'm not sure or clear exactly whether the ordinance is a mandate. Is the ordinance a mandate for wearing masks in public on the island and on the ferry?
Is it a mandate?
In other words, is the ordinance is it of the nature of a mandate? In other words, what I was about to urge was that we mandate as a town the wearing of masks in all public places, including the ferry, because of course what we've been hearing and seeing on a day-to-day basis is that people who are traveling on the ferry are not wearing masks, and that many of our visitors on the streets of the island are not wearing masks in public. So it seemed to me that I wasn't sure about what Kathy said about the ordinance, whether there's an actual mandate in place. Can there be a mandate in place? I'm posing that as a question. I would urge that there be something of that nature, but I don't know whether that's something that you as a town council can effect.
Oh, I don't think we have jurisdiction over the ferry, to answer the first part of your question.
Well,
as far as whether it's a mandate or not, I mean, I would defer to Catherine Marola in terms of semantics on that.
Yes, it's what is put in an ordinance. It's a mandate of an ordinance, which
Okay.
is a requirement. It's not a suggestion. A suggestion doesn't really need to be in an ordinance.
so then how does one enforce that? In other words, do we have police, the bicycle police going around stopping people? Do we have people, are there people approaching those who do not abide by that ordinance or mandate, not necessarily in an adversarial way, but approaching them and saying, this is not, you're violating the policy of the island? How is that enforced?
Well, that's jumping right to the big question, isn't it? Hopefully we'll get around to that, Gloria. Sven Riesem?
Just so Gloria knows, right now, it is an executive order of the governor that basically, I won't use the word mandate, but says that indoors or outdoors within 6 feet of another person, indoors or outdoors within 6 feet of another person, you need to be wearing a mask. And so it is currently an executive order of the governor. Just so you know.
Andre Boudreaux? You're muted.
Probably for the best. Gloria, just so you know, as Kathy, our solicitor, just said, our ordinance goes further than what the governor says, and it mandates them in the public buildings like in the businesses. So it does mirror the governor's order, but it also gives our shop owners an extra layer of protection if they have boisterous and belligerent people in their shops who don't want to abide by the mask law. They could actually call the police, and there'd be some teeth in that where the police could come and find people, which we're not asking for off the bat. We're asking for an education program, but this would give our shop owners that extra bit of security, I would say.
Well, actually, what we're talking about, Andre, tonight is a draft. It's not our ordinance. It's the draft of a proposed ordinance. So,
Right, and that's what's in our draft.
right.
So just to follow up, may I follow up a question? Hello, Gloria, again. Just to follow up on Andre and on something you said, Ken, I had 2 points. I was going to ask 2 questions, and one of them was about the mandated masks. And you've answered my question about that, at least in relation to the town. I guess I also would like to suggest, I don't understand our relationship with the ferry. The governor has chastised the ferry people several times now for not doing distancing appropriately and not insisting on mask wearing. We have a long-term standing relationship with the ferry interstate. Is there no way we can dialogue and converse with them to help them understand the seriousness of them complying? And my wish, or for the people who are calling me, that is other seniors, and frankly, for myself and Harold as seniors on the island, they are concerned that the numbers of people coming over on the ferry are beyond what is reasonable for the purpose of social distancing. Friends have been on the ferry and said people are on top of each other. People are not wearing masks. And what does that mean in terms of the potential jeopardy to those of us who live on the island? I'm simply conveying to you some very serious concerns, particularly of seniors, but for other community constituencies as well. And I think that we need to develop some kind of ability to have some meaningful dialogue with the interstate in order to impress on them the seriousness of that issue. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Gloria. I guess in light of Gloria's comments, I'd like to give Bill McComb an opportunity. Bill, if you don't have any input, not as EMA director, but possibly as a representative for Interstate, you'd like to make any comments along those lines?
Sure. I respect and I hear Gloria's complaint. It's frustrating for us also. You know, we've been working with the governor's office, the Department of Health, the Department of Transportation, and as you know, with the town. And what we're finding is that the compliance going on the boat and coming off the boat has been good. People on the inside cabin, the compliance is good. On that top deck, they feel comfortable in the open air. Our crew members aren't policemen. They go by, they ask people to put the mask on. We tell them we're not going to get into confrontations. Placed 150 stickers on the benches on both boats, playing announcements on the beginning, halfway over when the boat comes in. So it's certainly not because of the education of it. We're really striving for education and cooperation. We're finding the same frustration that Berkeley's Ice Cream, you saw it in the paper yesterday, is having, and other businesses where those people feel comfortable if they're within a setting of themselves and away from other people. You know, what we've done with our passengers is we've cut that down to about 50%. And we told people that if they can put their luggage on the seat in order to do some distancing with it also. But it's frustrating because we're putting a lot of time and effort into it. And, there's only so much that we can control, as you're on the water.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Bill.
And I have a separate question on the draft ordinance. Is there a penalty assigned to that?
Yeah, the penalty clause at the end is violation of any provision of the ordinance is punishable by a fine not exceeding $500 or imprisonment not exceeding 30 days. Each day of violation of this ordinance shall constitute a separate offense. That's in the proposal.
So you understand, just like we did with the dunes and with the straws, that's a misdemeanor, a criminal offense.
Right. Well, that's the way it's been proposed, Bill. That's what we're here to talk about tonight.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Other comments from the council? Sven Reese?
That was my question.
I'm sorry, Martha.
No, I'm sorry. I was only going to say that was my question. Are we making this a criminal offense, which I think is, on the one hand, fine, but on the other hand, let's try to make something work. I'd much rather have it work.
Right, thank you.
I don't think that does it.
Good point, Martha, thank you. Sven, go ahead.
At some point, Ken, I can talk about the experience when I met the ferries over the weekend. I'll let you judge when that is, but if you want, I can just let everybody know on the phone what we did and what we tried to do, and a potential education awareness program for even this weekend.
Well, Sven, if you're suggesting it as an alternative or if it has pertinence to this discussion about the ordinance, go ahead.
Okay, so just for everybody's knowledge that doesn't know, I met personally the ferry starting at 8:30 until 12:30 Saturday and Sunday morning. The medical center provided about 2,000 masks, of which I still have many. The guide, Kevin Weaver, provided the guide, and then Town Hall printed up a bilingual brief statement that basically said you need to wear a mask indoors and outdoors within 6 feet of another, social distancing and washing hands, and then also had a snippet of the governor's executive order giving it some beef. My non-quantitative but clearly analyzed the audience coming off the boat. I would say that 80% of the people coming off the boat had a mask. We handed out a lot. Many people liked the lighter masks. Those who didn't have masks, the 20%, 10% definitely grabbed one up. They appreciated the town's outreach. They appreciated the knowledge. They didn't realize that they needed to have a mask outdoors when within 6 feet of another. And then, to be very frank, 10% of the people just passed right by. You know, I was not there to be the police. I was not there to start a confrontation. We are educating and informing. And many of them just sort of nodded and kept walking. And by observation, they were often in their 20s. And I don't mean to label, but clearly there was sort of this very youthful attitude that it was a little bit of, I'm okay, I'm gonna go. And so it's just an interesting observation because I wasn't expecting that. I believe that it did impact a little bit, obviously not to that 10%. I believe it did help. I believe it increased awareness. And I believe it's something that, whether we have the ordinance or not and everything, I think we should continue to do an education program and awareness. I have talked with Jim Kern. I have talked with the police chief, who I believe is also on. The chief mentioned that maybe we could use one or two of the CSOs, which are the young guys who come to the island on the weekend and help with traffic, that maybe they could help hand out masks, hand out samples, hand out the guide and hand out the little flyer. One could be at one end of Water Street or by the surf there. One could be down by wherever we say, but the idea would be to have two people on Water Street that would nicely, professionally, politely remind people of the laws and educate and increase awareness. So I believe, Ken, if we wanted to ask the chief and to ask the town to help support that program, that we could do something. And I think that we should really consider that of instituting an education awareness program, regardless of the ordinance. Or in addition to, if we want to do an ordinance, but at least that to me is step one. Many people were just not aware of the Rhode Island state law, to be honest with you. They came from Connecticut, Massachusetts, all over, and they were like, oh, I didn't even know. And they were very appreciative of our reach out, at least most of the people.
Right, thank you.
It's quick.
Hold on, Andre, go ahead.
Thank you, Ken. So Sven, how many people did you say roughly percentage-wise coming off the boat without any masks?
20, 15, 20. I mean, now a lot of people were taking them off or they just didn't know, but I was surprised how many people came off those morning boats with masks. I was expecting it to be lower, but I would say 20, 25% did not have a mask.
Okay, so I understand The ferry, I was on the boat today and they don't let you on there without wearing your mask. So I'm wondering what happens when they, get off. I mean, here's my problem with this is that being on the mainland, parking lots, businesses, everywhere you go, people are wearing masks.
Yeah.
I mean, I was actually kind of shocked. So it seems they come over here and they get the salt air and, they just all of a sudden, they don't have them or they got a condition where they can't wear them. And it's a complete disrespect for what we're trying to do here and what we have done since early and late March. So we need we do need a public information campaign because there are people, I mean, I have a letter in front of me that I'll read to you. It just says, "Hey, I just want to weigh in on my complete support for a mask ordinance. It was from a business owner in town. I find it very disturbing that most people rolling up off the beaches and the bars are not wearing masks. I do not allow anyone in my store without one. Most people I address that are not wearing a mask and are not aware of the governor's mandate about mask use. And I've already had some very heated discussions with the mask-free public." So I'm not sure why people coming from here, I just don't understand it. And they come here and they just don't feel as though they need to wear a mask. They don't have to bring a mask I don't.
Ken?
Hold on, Jim. Martha, do you have something?
Yeah, the only thing that I would say to that is, we forget, it happens every summer and we just forget how bad it is. They may be paying a little bit more attention down from the tri-state area now, but that's a whole nother ballgame. I do think it's a very good idea to have the CSOs out there with mass information because you can tell people something over and over and over again if you actually hand them something politely and remind them. You're going to get people that read something when they get on the boat and they're going to forget it by the time they're off because they're on Block Island. We all know this. It's not disparaging anyone. It's just vacation brain.
Just if I may add.
Hold on, Gloria, please wait. Jim Kern, you had your hand raised.
Just make sure I'm unmuted. I spoke with the city manager in Newport today, and I also spoke with the town manager in Narragansett, and I can relay their perspectives and experiences. The Newport, I think it's actually an executive order was referred to in our last meeting. I can share that with the group at the point where you think it's appropriate. Ken, thanks.
To hear that right now, go ahead.
So first, City of Newport, they actually did it before the other difficulties that resulted from gentleman's untimely death and untimely death, murder in most people's perspectives, and the civil unrest that followed shortly after that. They put the ordinance out. The city manager said there was some considerable confusion about it. It goes from a certain time of day, I think 12 to 8, only certain days, I think Thursday to Sunday, only certain sections of the city. So there was some confusion at first. There is a penalty associated with it, but as everyone else that you talk to when it comes to enforcement, the answer is consistent. We're looking for voluntary compliance, and that was his answer too. There hadn't been any active enforcement in that way. We also don't want to communicate particular enforcement approaches, but that's what had happened. He very strongly then suggested, and he said he's frustrated too. He said his wife tells him don't go downtown because he figures compliance is around 40%, which in some ways you're happy with, in some ways you're disappointed with. But he said continue to push with sandwich board signs, business cards, placards, flyers, just trying to get the message out. So, and he and I talked quickly about the perception that I have that people get off the boat on Block Island and this is the same conversation we had in Narragansett. If you go, as Andre was saying, if you go to Stop and Shop in Narragansett, people are wearing masks. If you go in Shaw's in Wakefield, if you go in any of the other stores, because they're in kind of merchant mode. They're coming, Jerry's Hardware, they're coming in and out of the store. Everybody else is wearing a mask. You're not getting in without it. You'd put it on right as you come out of the car. Okay, but you go down to the pier, the Narragansett Pier, and you go down to the beach. It's a little different. Now I'm at the beach. Now it's a different deal. I'm having a good time. I'm with the people that I'm always with, and I'm at the beach. This is just my own observation. I think there's, I'm certainly not telling anybody in this group anything they don't know. I think there's a certain mentality, and I've been watching for the last couple of weeks, that once I get off the boat, I'm at the beach. I'm in beach mode. I'm not in merchant mode. I'm not going and Stop and Shop. I'm going to take the mask off because the whole life's a beach once I get off. And I think we need to work against that perception. And I think particularly with respect to the merchants, because they're trying to do business, and life can't be a beach for everybody walking into any of these businesses. So in both of those cases, Newport a little different, right? Because the beach isn't immediately adjacent to the business area, a little bit more isolated, but particularly in Narragansett, drastic difference between down by the pier, down around Scarborough, down at the other point, Judith, not the Galilee area, wherever it is you go to the beach, and the regular business areas of South Kingstown and Narragansett. So that's the perspective from those two people, looking for voluntary compliance and using any of these communications to make sure that people do know.
Jim, you're seized up there. Communication broke down. We lost you, Jim.
Yeah. May I add a word, Ken?
Okay, Gloria, you've spoken several times. So as long as you can just keep it kind of short, because we do have other people want to talk.
Very short. I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that I endorse and support wholeheartedly Sven's idea of an educational program that's a kind of friendly persuasion. I think that's exactly what we do need. People do, and to what Jim's point was, people do need to become aware that life is not just a beach. So I definitely endorse Sven's plan. It's a very good one. I think the town should as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. Other comments or questions about it? Cindy Lasser, I see your hand raised.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
Hi. No, I completely agree, and it's really good information. And I know that, and I've been testing our callers, saying, so this is just like the mask and the social distancing, just like you're doing at home. Yes, that's all. We're quite used to that, and it is completely. I completely agree. It is the life's a beach attitude on the boat. Everything changes once you're out to sea, and then you get here. I think the number is much higher than the 20% in that parking lot area. It's just crowds and crowds of people without masks. Today, I just looked out the window, and the line from the ticket booth to way past the parking, everybody was on top of each other. But then another time I looked up, and the line, they were doing a beautiful job social distancing. I hate to put more signage around, but I just don't think people are aware. And we have so many people that come into the chamber without a mask, or they have a mask and they pull the mask down to talk to us, which is so silly also. It's just education and a lot, and we have noticed sort of an uptick of people being with a little edge to them because it's hot and they're not liking the mask and they don't want to wear the mask and they want to have fun and not wear the mask. But but to protect the businesses, I really think they need some extra support from us. And so I just appreciate an ordinance to that, and what Andre's on to with that. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Cindy. Other comments or questions?
Well, I just have a comment about
Andre, go ahead. Thank you.
Jim. Is Jim back? All right. It's all right. I don't see Jim here, but
Chris Bully?
Jim's not back.
What?
Jim, I was looking for a question for Jim, but that's okay.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think he's back yet.
Can we? I see Pete Gimp's on here from a perspective of EMA. Pete, is he here? Can he hear me? Pete Gimp.
He's unmuted.
Peter, you there? Or maybe
Peter
direct.
Gimp?
Peter Gimp.
Yeah, I'm here right now. I just would like to know why I was not notified about this meeting. This is not the first time, and I do care very much about this community. My job is for the welfare of this community, and I have been totally shut out. Totally. It's not right.
Thanks, Pete. I did have a question for you, though. From an EMA point of view, we're discussing the mask ordinance.
Well, hold on. Can we just be sure that Pete's on the list from now on?
Pete, did you not get informed this morning?
No, I did not. The last time I was on my email, I was paying bills, and it was at 1:30 this afternoon. I had nothing at all. And this is not the first time, and I'm pretty pissed off.
Thank you, Pete. I think it's a communication problem, obviously, because I was informed that you had been told about it. We'll follow up on that for sure. Apologize for that. These meetings are advertised also, so just you might also be aware that they are advertised, and just keep an eye out for that. But we'll try to make sure that you're informed in a timely fashion. Andre, do you want to finish up on something?
Yeah, no, I saw Pete here, and I hope that's the last time that happens to you, Pete. But my question is to you as the co-EMA director. We're discussing masks and a mask ordinance, and from Block Island EMA, I want to know what your opinion on that is, mandating the use of masks in town and elsewhere.
As I've been around and have seen what has been going on is totally wrong. People are not cohering with what should have been done. I also did read what about New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, things like that. Was just only because my brother sent me something, but I have never received anything from the town. I do not follow different social media. I do not belong to the Block Island Bulletin Board. The only way I'm going to know anything if someone actually emails me.
Okay, thank you, Pete. Andre, do you want to direct your question to one of the other EMA directors also?
Sure. I mean, I'm asking Pete because he's the guy that's here on the island. So if Bill wants to weigh in on that too, that's fine with me. But I haven't heard from Bill about what his opinion is.
Andre, I'd like to weigh in with that. I agree with the fact that I think the mask should be worn. I think it should be the position. And my only concern is how we put an ordinance out, and what that expectation is. So most people, when there's an ordinance, they expect it to be, they expect it if people are violating it, for people to be ticketed and so forth with that. So I think that we definitely should be some type of stand that we take with that. But I think, the ordinance, if it's written as is proposed, that it's a misdemeanor, I think we're going to end up in the same problem we had before in the past with, does the police department have the resource and ability to enforce at that level? Or are we going to go through the, with the bike patrol and so forth from a educational aspect of it? So I don't think anyone refutes that the mask wearing is not a good idea. It's just about how do we implement that? And my concern is that if we make it a misdemeanor ordinance, and we're not going to enforce it, I think it sends the wrong message. So I think that needs to be crafted a little bit differently.
Can I ask Kathy about that? If there was something else she could in there, because I get that. I certainly get the stress and the strain on NSPD in the summertime. I assume they're going to be operating. I don't know if Jim is back on. That's what I kind of wanted to ask him when he was here last time before he went off. Are we rolling with the same amount of officers and, state police or whatever we normally have in the summertime? Is that what we're having? Is that what we have for enforcement this summer also?
Chief Colon is on too, I believe. Maybe Chief could answer that directly.
Yes, we have about the same, but less state troopers going through. They're very busy over there. One thing I will tell you is we're experiencing a lot of young people. It's like the resurgence of the backpack crew that took a lot of effort to discourage and get families here. So, which I wrote you a memo on, I predicted this because they've been being paid without going to work for months and months. So this is the crew, and God bless them. I was one of them at one time. So I'm not criticizing them for having fun. But this is the crew that really isn't the type of individuals that make things easy for anyone. And they're not going to listen to anything, and they're not going to wear a mask. And we're going to be lucky. There's already been some good fights on the boat, which we haven't had in years and years and years. So you need to understand what's actually going on before you actually exacerbate the situation with more stipulations. Every time you send out messages to the world of new rules and laws, you get the rule followers and the good people that say we're not going to go there. The rest that are not rule followers don't even read the message. And we have had a lot of conflicts thus far, much with less people here, more conflicts, more mental health issues, more substance abuse issues in the last couple of weeks than I've seen in a decade. So you need to factor in what we are actually up against that is actually more serious than the COVID-19 and more present in our reality.
So what I'm hearing, Chief, is that you have the same amount of officers and less state troopers on the weekends, and
no, about the same state troopers, but not for the 4th of July because they're very busy, and on occasion we can get them extra when we need them. But I don't know about this year because they've got a lot of problems going on the other side.
So what I'm hearing from you is that you are having more issues with the same staff, more serious issues, it's sounding to me, with your same staff. Is that correct?
That's correct. And really, people are not as agreeable as in the past, what's going on in the country. There's a very anti-police sentiment. I spent at least 3 hours today addressing different groups and different people, discouraging that sort of sentiment, encouraging cooperation. So we have our hands full with things right now. And therefore, we will certainly help in any way we can with this, but we have some greater issues that are clear and present against us right now. And I think they're going to get worse.
Okay, so with that being said, would it be, you're painting a pretty grim picture and you sound like you need some help.
No, here's the bottom line. Look at what's going on in the country. There is a very big anti-police sentiment. Take a look at who's coming off the boat. It's all young people who are mostly involved in the sentiment. Look at the backpack crews going around early on right now. We have to evaluate this, as I've always said, week by week. This really out here is a peacekeeping mission. we can never do things to incite people. I'm sure you would agree. So as Fen has done an amazing job trying to do this with the masks and all in a very positive, intelligent manner without a confrontational manner. There is no way we can conduct ourselves in a confrontational manner with respects to things like masks right now. I'm sure we would all agree on that. There are many bigger issues that we are going to be faced with as this summer proceeds with the way this country is right now. I've been meeting with all the young people on the island continuously in an effort to talk to them and, you know, win them over to our side. We are peace officers. We've never hurt anybody here, but people are afraid of the police now. We have to do things in a very intelligent manner this summer and probably thereafter. So I would encourage you to design an ordinance that teaches people, tries to educate them, try to win them over in a positive way, not in an enforcement situation.
Andre, could I have Chris Willie speak? I know his hand's been raised for a while.
I'm not
I just
done.
had a question. I just had a question about, I mean, the intent of this discussion that started last week was this was basically to be used as a tool because our community has concerns, particularly with our business community as well as our community at large, about what they can do if they have a problem with, let's say, a shop owner has a confrontation. You know, what are they to do?
With a confrontation with what?
Somebody coming in their store that doesn't want to wear a mask.
Okay, well, what they can do, first of all, that is it. What we've seen and we've been monitoring that is, I think we're getting a great deal of people that are respecting that. Secondly, the way I feel about it, and this is really not the national trend, I may be wrong, but in my opinion, they own the shop and they have the right to allow who they wish to come in with respect to their behavior. Hold on. So the bottom line is, if a shop owner calls the police and they want somebody removed because they're not in compliance with the rules of the shop, that is their property, and the trespass law would allow us to certainly remove them. If they refuse, it would allow us to arrest them. But as I've said, I think we're getting great compliance with that thus far.
Jim Kern.
Yeah, it's related. Ken and Andre and I participated in a call with some of the governor's people and the Rhode Island Department of Health people today, and I've reached out to DPR director, that's regulation. They have been out on the island doing, I don't know if they call them visitations or spot checks. They also have some enforcement people that is in some ways directed at the business owner, but it also is in conjunction with the business owner. And so there's additional, it is enforcement, but there's additional resources being brought to bear in Block Island now, and will be through this next couple of months. We'll have a conversation with them, and we'll continue to. And as it relates to ordinance that the town, I think it should fold in with the state's directives and their efforts to increase compliance in all the different ways we're trying to do it.
Thank you, Jim. Jess Willie.
Yeah, hi, thank you. I was getting confused. I think I heard Bill say it at the last meeting too, and I was hoping somebody on the council or Ms. Marola could explain, you know, what's the difference between like the leash law ordinance and the open container law and all of the different ordinances on Block Island are they different than this mask ordinance would be? In other words, the fine and everything else. We have a lot of, we have don't put your household trash in the the trash cans in town. There's a $500 fine or whatever it is. So how would this be different than those, or would it not be? I was just looking for clarity on that.
Catherine, could you address that? Catherine Morello?
Sure. It's not a one size fits all. Different ordinances have different penalties, and we have a general default ordinance as well. So you have to basically tell me which one you want to know the penalty for, and then I can look it up and tell you. But all of our ordinances are enforceable by a minimum a fine.
Thank you.
Ken, Bill McComb.
Bill McComb, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think the point to that is, and we went through this with the straws and with the dunes, there's violations which are only punishable by a fine. A police cannot do a custodial arrest. The next level up is misdemeanors, which a custodial arrest can be made, and you end up with in criminal court, and then felonies. And the violations are civil. So I think that I think what the intent, just like the dunes, is if you are going to have some type of a penalty, it should be a violation, which is only punishable by a dollar amount. And it's particularly if what I'm hearing is that you're really looking for this to be an educational aspect of it, that's something you can lean back and say because it's a local ordinance.
Thank you, Bill.
Ken,
Andre, go ahead.
I agree with you, Bill, but I also feel that if it was advertised that this is a town ordinance, that would maybe stop and think twice about it. I think an ordinance in and of itself is an educational tool, and I may be wrong. Even if it was like I mean, obviously we're not going to give out fines for that unless there's a gross violation of that. But I think if it said in bold print, like on the boat or wherever have you, the town of New Charm mandates the use of masks, for whatever it would read, I think that would be an educational tool too. I mean, even if it was like a $50 fine, or it doesn't have to be $500. I don't know what Kathy's got in there, but and we full knowing that only a gross violator of this, and obviously you can't, there's other issues too, Chief. I get that, and I understand that, some people have conditions, they can't do it, A friendly reminder, hey, the town has an ordinance against this, and if you can put a mask on, the residents would greatly appreciate it. If they say, if anything at all. But I think the business owners, as the chamber has said, is basically the chamber represents, I don't know how a lot of businesses, and the chamber just basically said the businesses all want this. The elderly folks are on here and they want this. I have not gotten any correspondence saying, oh God, you're crazy if you pass that. So this is where we are. And but Chief, I get it. But I think, as I said to you earlier, way before this, I think just a policeman in a uniform is a deterrent. It was, at least it was for me growing up.
Can I respond to this, please?
No ticket, it's like, you're. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. See, you are a rule-following person, and I respect you for that. So if you know the rules ahead of time, and you have a nice family, okay? Say you're going somewhere, and you will find out the rules, okay? And you're going there. You are going to follow them. So any ordinance or anything you pass is going to be only the rule-following type of people are going to read it and respond to it. So what I'm concerned about is losing families reading it and going, let's not go there. The kids that we're getting are not going to read any of this. I don't want to trade what we have now for something else, which took a long time to get rid of. So you put that out there to the universe, and I believe, and from what I'm hearing from people I know, they look at things and they say, do we want to go there or don't we? We want the people that will follow reasonable rules. I'm just seeing what I don't like it. You know, I kind of predicted it, and I hope it doesn't continue, because we do not want the backpack clad beach going thousands of people buying booze and going on the beach and smashing bottles and ended up in the medical center. We want to encourage we don't want to trade them for the families. So be careful what you put out to the universe. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you,
Ken,
Chief.
Bill McCombs.
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, Andre, just so it's clear, whether it's a violation or it's a misdemeanor, they're all ordinances. You'd still be passing an ordinance. It's the penalty what dictates whether it's a violation, civil, only by a fine, or whether it's a criminal offense. That's all. So my issue is more with what you put in towards the penalty. So if you pass an ordinance, and an ordinance, you make it a $5, $10, $100 fine, only a fine, then it's a violation. It's not a criminal offense. It's still an ordinance that you passed.
And just to keep it in perspective too, we know that there is already an ordinance, a state ordinance concerning masks. And every time the governor's on TV, she does suggest that everyone wear their mask in public and on the highway and everything else. But even she has admitted that that's not something that she can force everyone to do. So she's trying to do it through education and through coercion and through appealing to their good sense.
Ken?
Who's that?
Kathy?
Catherine Marola? Go ahead.
Kathy? Yeah, I just wanted to answer the question of where the penalty came from. When the council first enacted the very first emergency ordinance, I was instructed to impose the maximum penalty permitted by law for violation of ordinances, which is 4562 of the Rhode Island General Laws. And that is where the $500 or imprisonment not exceeding 30 days has come from. And all of the emergency ordinances since then have carried that same penalty. Having said that, that's the maximum, and it would be up to the council to decide if they want to change what they did in the past in terms of the violation of the emergency ordinances and put a fine in as opposed to what the law allows.
It's good for you. It's delicious.
I believe it's the other communities that are doing this have talked about having a warning and then a smaller fine and having a 3-tier, 4-tier process, maybe a 3-tier, I guess it is. But having the initial intent of the ordinance to be one of education and voluntary compliance.
Oh, may I?
Andre, go ahead.
I mean, Chief, I'm still stuck on, Chief, I'm actually past the mask thing now. The picture you're painting is, and I'm wondering, should we limit the number? What the story you're telling me is making me think we should limit the number of day trippers and ask the governor for a contingent of National Guard to assist us on the weekends, especially the 4th of July. Is that something you think we might need?
Well, I think that's not. I appreciate the input from the chief, whatever, but Andre, I think that kind of conversation is not what's on the agenda for right now in terms of the mask ordinance. That's what we're talking about.
I think it's the next time we speak to our state leaders. You're rolling your eyes at me, but
Martha, go ahead.
Very grim picture.
Martha, go ahead.
I thought that after we went through the debacle with the balloons, with the dunes, I can't even remember now, the dunes, the balloons, whatever it was, that we agreed we would not be putting in the criminal offenses because those are things that people are going to fight. The things that are going to be in people's records forever. I just want people to wear the darn masks. And it sounds as if putting the kids on bikes out there with them is probably going to be more effective than getting. I remember those. I think we all remember those years when things got a little rocky on the 4th of July, especially, and nobody wants to go back there. I just want to have the most effective thing that we can do that will work the fastest and not get caught up in some, well, I'm going to go to court because I don't want this on my record, which is just going to make everything worse. I just want to have an effective way of getting people to not to put on the darn mask. And it sounds like trying to greet people to be sure they have them is the best way you can go. And of course it's an ordinance. It doesn't matter what the penalty is. It's an ordinance. It's an ordinance. But we all presume everybody listens to the governor just because we do, which is, naive of us. And beyond that, of course, so many people aren't from Rhode Island now.
Right.
So where do we sit with this? Does anybody want to make a motion? Heard from the public? I don't know if anybody public wants to speak on this. I don't have that screen.
Stan, go ahead.
Chief, is Chief still on the line?
He's still here, yeah.
Yes.
Chief, I mentioned, I don't know if you heard, but I mentioned your offer to me earlier today about using the CSOs for handing out materials. If I were to work with you and Jim to basically do what I was doing at the boat, but 2 plays on Water Street, is that still a capability for this weekend?
Yes, of course. But as I just want to reiterate and respond to, here's what I'm not trying to throw you into a panic about who's coming here. We need to look at this week to week, as I do with every boat, and see what our clientele will be. That is the only way we understand how to deal with them on a police force. Okay? We took great strides to change the clientele from one thing that when I came here in 2003 to what was largely families. It took a lot of effort to get that done. I'm sure you understand. So now we are in a transition period. We do not want to discourage families, is what I'm saying, and encourage others. So we need to look week to week at who's coming here, and then we evaluate my staff and we develop our plan week to week. We've had it fairly good for the past 10 years. It seems to be changing. That's all I'm telling you. I hope I'm wrong. Maybe I am. We need to look at it week to week. But of course, we will be willing to assist in any way we can with reasonable things that do not cause confrontation. That is a very important statement. Reasonable things that do not create confrontation in the hot sun, obviously.
Thank you, Chief. Chris Lilly, I see your hand up.
Chief, could you explain again how we're discouraging families from coming?
I'm not saying you are. I'm saying what you put out into the universe with ordinances. Say you pass ordinances greater than what the state requires. The only ones reading that will be families. 20-something-year-olds will never read it and never care. That's all I'm trying to tell you.
I understand that, but you said we're discouraging families from coming. So if a family reads an ordinance that says the town wants you to wear masks, I would think that would be beneficial for the families that want to come out, because we've heard a lot about people concerned about coming out after seeing the ferry, or they have people in their families that are immunocompromised. So they want to see what the town is doing, putting their best foot forward. So I'm losing the connection between passing an ordinance that says this is what we want everybody to do and families not
you
coming
might
out.
be correct. You might be correct. I'm just going by what I see coming. And whatever decision you make, I just think you should try to realize who we are actually, we want to keep certain groups of people coming here that do not create problems, and we want to discourage others that do. I'm just asking you to factor that in. I could be incorrect in my assessment. It remains to be seen. We have to go through the summer and see. You may be correct. I would at least ask you to think about what I'm telling you, based upon the number of what I've seen come off the ferry thus far. And the phone calls I've gotten from people saying they don't want to come because of this or that. families renting, people with boats, people that don't create any problems and follow the rules. I think those are the people we want to keep. We would agree.
I completely agree, which is why I think they want to see the rules. And the people that don't like following rules don't like going places that have rules.
Well, you may be right, but when you go over and above the state's rules, you may be going too far, and you may discourage the wrong people. You may have unintended consequences. Listen, I could be completely wrong. I'm just telling you my observations.
So with it's in terms of that, Chief, what you just said, I mean, the state rules, as I've mentioned, the state rules are out there that they're recommending the mask be worn. The only difference between what is proposed tonight is that the state basically leaves the enforcement of it up to the Rhode Island Department of Health and doesn't necessarily specifically say how that's supposed to be enforced. And they also have directed or are not directing the state police, which they have control of, to actively enforce and aggressively enforce that mask ordinance. So, that's the difference between what we're proposing and what the state is doing. So it could very well be that the way to do this is to tone it down a bit, still have it in place, but tone it down a bit to mirror the state's recommendations, which we're under anyway. So.
Well, I don't know if the state police have no intention of enforcing a mask ordinance. I can tell you that.
I'm aware of that. Yeah.
I thought you said they did.
No.
In other words, they are up against it, with protests and different things. And right now, the police mission has become basically a peacekeeping mission to get past all of these issues that are going on.
Right, I know. No, I'm aware. Like I said,
the consensus of police departments.
The state's indicating that the enforcement of the mask ordinances will be up to the Department of Health. So, and I think the Department of Health is probably going to would probably recommend somewhat of an educational and compliance, voluntary compliance situation rather than an enforcement.
Well, they're basically looking at businesses, not people walking around. So the businesses that have been viewed thus far on the island, my understanding is they did very well with their compliance efforts.
Yeah.
That's my understanding of it. They have in fact been here and taken a look, and they've done fairly well. That's my understanding of it.
Right. No, that's right.
Ken?
Andre Boudreau, I see your hand up.
No, go ahead, Martha. Go ahead. I'll let Martha go first. I'm a gentleman tonight.
Oh my. Trip to the mainland did you good. Then what I think I keep hearing from all the correspondence we've gotten, it really appears that, as I said before, we've been really naive thinking that everybody's listening to the governor and reading the executive orders and thinking they know what's there. Can we just I don't have the wording. I would make a motion to adopt this with the change in the penalty, but I don't know what language I need to make that penalty change from the one it is to the lesser penalty. I think we all agree we want to do this, don't we, at the table?
I think
Let's just do it.
I think I do. Well,
But the penalties an issue, and I brought this up before, that once you have that kind of arrest on a record with the way the world works today, that's always going to be with you, and that's going to. I just don't think
wait
that,
a minute. Are you saying we are going to summons people for not wearing a mask?
No, I'm saying you're not. That's the whole point. I'm trying to not have that. I just want to have.
Okay.
I just don't know what the language is to change. I don't want the languages in there now on the violation. I want the lesser language, the same language we have for the dunes. And I just don't have that wording.
Well, I think
Can anybody help me?
Yes, Bill McComb understands this is because he's been through this many times, and he brings up a good point. You make it any law you make that's very minor, it should not be considered to be a custodial arrest.
But that's what I'm trying to go. So Kathy, do you have that,
Right.
the language that we had for the ultimately for the
It could be a
drones?
violation.
Yeah, Martha, I was just looking that up right now. I'm in the Code of Ordinances.
Well, Catherine, while you're looking that up, Sven, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I'm right with Martha. I do have one or two other little things in the ordinance, but, and I think Andre's point is that both for all the residents and everybody here on the island, but also to communicate that the island is serious about this. And if those, like I said, maybe it's 15% of people won't listen to it, they're not gonna listen to it anyway. But I think for all the others, one can have this violation or small fine. I do though, as we pass this, I really do think we should ask the chief, work with the police, and have the CSOs also do that educational material at the same time. So I don't want to lose. I think both of them together could help. So I just don't want to lose that. Sorry.
We would be happy to help any way we can, educationally and talking to people and whatever. We have some message board signs. If we can get them working, we haven't had them working in 10 years. We could put some message boards out.
Chief, I think we could also use the tactic that you used, and I brought this up with the state a while back, is that, you know, that sign that on the Route 95 where it cuts down to Route 4, that helped you in the town rid us of that party on the beach. There was a big sign on that said, as soon as you turn on Route 4, like, I don't know, I forget what it was, but you know, with
Yeah, we did that campaign to do that. You know, we used the Fusion Center of the Rhode Island State Police. We used so many things because that was a very serious concern with respect to 21 kids ending up in the hospital. Some could have died. So that was quite an undertaking. It took nearly a year. This situation is a little bit different. I think we have to have a little brainstorm session with maybe a couple council people and maybe myself and the town manager to think of different things that make sense to this, and maybe get back, you know, within a short period, come up with a plan.
I think that would be a fantastic idea, because it seems to me as though obviously we're not going to lean on the police force to give tickets for people or throw someone in the or run Ken down to Warden's Court at midnight because someone wasn't wearing a mask. But like I said, you're totally right. I would be very interested in having that meeting, and it could be with the whole council, with yourself, EMA, whoever, on how the best that we could, you know, we could handle this. But I mean, from what you're telling me, I mean, I think, you know, that whole thing with the beach, like that was like you said, 20 somethings drinking and, you know, 20 deaths. You said, but you know, this is different. This is preventing a catastrophic illness from coming to this island. And this is, and now you're saying that, you know, we got punks going to be roaming the streets now. And I would love to.
No. Wait a minute. What I'm trying to say is what I'm seeing is a resurgence of many more young people coming with backpacks. Maybe they're not bad people, but I would rather see a family with 2 children and the mother and father holding hands and renting a room at the 1661. You see, that, in my personal opinion, as a 58-year-old policeman, and I'm sure everyone would agree, that's what we would much rather see coming here.
I don't mind young people.
That's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm seeing thus far. You know, I'm seeing young people with backpacks, probably with alcohol in it. And there's been a couple of fights on the boats that hasn't been in years and years. So I'm seeing a trend toward things that, you know, are discouraging to me, because we worked hard to kind of change this island to be a more family-friendly place. And we all did that together.
Ken,
you know?
Bill McComb, when you get...
Take it back to my ordinance.
Yes, can I answer Martha's question?
Yeah, Chris, I see your hand. I'll get it to you in a minute. Catherine, go ahead.
Yeah, the penalty under the Dune ordinance is any person who violates this ordinance will be subject to a fine of up to $50 for each violation payable to the town of New Shoreham.
Ken,
Thank
Bill McComb.
Thank you, Catherine. Hold on, Bill. Hold on, Bill. Chris Willie?
I just recall what Chief Carlone was talking about with, there was several things. We had issues in Old Harbor that we got cleaned up. We had issues with the partying on the beach that we got cleaned up. The reality is that we cleaned those up with ordinances. Open container laws, no coolers on the ferry was very successful. I mean, that might not have been an ordinance, that was a ferry rule, but I mean, so this is kind of the same. I think we're in the same predicament, and with the observations of the chief, with people coming off the ferry, and Andre, and maybe one of the EMA directors and the town manager, just have a brainstorming session and come up with. I mean, like, it is going to be week to week. I'm not looking forward to the 4th of July. I don't know what that's going to look like. But if we don't get a message out there beforehand, I think it could be worse than if we don't put a message out there. And I do agree with Martha modeling that. I remember having the conversation with the balloons, the dunes, the bags, and everything else. That's the direction that this should go. I don't think arresting anybody or a $500 fine is productive in this case. So if that's the direction I would like to see this move, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Sven Reeson?
So I guess as trying to move it along to Martha's comment, I would love to direct Kathy to change 5.5 of the ordinance to reflect the balloon ordinance, the $50, up to $50 for each offense. The other one is on point 3, I think we should add the grocery store in there. As we all know, they've been doing a whole lot. I know it says above all persons in grocery, pharmacy, and other retail places of business, but I didn't know if we wanted to have it in point 3 as well. And I would say on February 1st, we should all review, February 1st, July 1st, we should review that, if not sooner, and then we can vote on it. But I'd also like to go ahead with the education program this weekend.
Okay. Ken, Bill McComb.
Bill McComb, go ahead.
Since your focus is education on this, can I make a suggestion that the first, you can make the violation, you can make the penalty whatever you want. The balloon ordinance, it's all arbitrary. I think the first, my suggestion, or I'd like you to consider, is for a first violation, be a warning, second violation, a fine up to $25. And that's the way here, it follows in the course of education. And if for some reason someone becomes, belligerent or whatever, there's a fine action they can take if they need be. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Could I say something? I really want to keep it simple. I know I didn't wait to get permission, but I'm still saying it. And if people have come on the boat, if they've already been talked to, they've in effect had a warning before they ever get to this stage. Can we just keep this as simple as we can keep it? And if we don't want to, and this has been in place. I'm not going to, that's the last time I'm going to say it. It's still in place. Should we just have this become effective when the governor drops the exec? No, I don't want to do that. Why can't we just vote on this tonight and be done with it?
Make a motion, Martha Ball.
Well, all I want to do is change the line. I want to adopt it as presented, accepting the penalty ordinance, which is what I said about 15 minutes ago. But I didn't have the language. That's my motion. I'm moving to accept the ordinance as presented, changing the penalty ordinance to reflect that in the previous ordinances as reiterated by the solicitor.
And I'll second.
Sven Reeson?
Kathy Marola, you had mentioned that there was a part of this that said a requirement to wear it in businesses that's different than the governor's executive order. Can you help me with that, where that is and how that's different? Because I thought the governor's order said indoors or outdoors within 6 feet of others.
Sorry, I'm talking with it on mute. Yes, you're correct about that. So number one in the proposed ordinance is indoor, outdoor 6 feet, except in 2 on Block Island, regardless of whether you're in 6 feet, if you're in indoors, in a grocery store, pharmacy, other retail place of business, taxi, car, livery, ride sharing, etc., you have to wear the mask regardless of whether you can be 6 feet apart. And that was my understanding on the instructions from the last meeting when I was told to draft it.
Last question, sorry, Kathy, is there any other difference than the governor's order? So I just want to make sure that we know what the outliers are.
Well, yes, that's the primary difference. Obviously, the other obvious difference that we've been discussing is that the town has the ability to enforce this. It won't be Department of Health. And third, the effect of this is that regardless of what the governor may do in the future with respect to masks, the town would have this in place if the council decides to keep it.
Thank you.
Further discussion or questions?
Any public, is there any public, Ken? I just want you to check that just to make sure.
One question while Ken's checking. Martha, did you want to add anything into it about education programs, or is that a separate discussion?
No.
Or nice?
It's a separate discussion.
This is another
Thank you.
emergency ordinance.
Thank you.
The only other thing I question is the nature of the item number 6 in terms of instructing the enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance. I think what we've been getting at tonight is using the ordinance for education and for voluntary compliance. I don't know if there's another way of wording number 6 that would make it more conducive to that voluntary compliance attitude, if you will. What we're trying to do is we're trying to accomplish something. We're not trying to accomplish racking up fines and arresting people. So I'd like to figure out how to maybe if we need to reword that a bit.
I'm sorry, I'm letting go.
Ken?
Somebody has to be in charge of it.
Exactly, Ken.
It's not going to be the DOH.
Instructed.
I guess it's a moot point. Any further comments or questions?
Was Kathy?
Ken?
Yes, Catherine, go ahead.
Kathy,
You know, we have to have that vote under the charter.
Oh, yeah.
Under 409B, unanimous vote to adopt an emergency ordinance and suspend the provisions of the charter 409A with respect to enacting a town ordinance.
Sorry. All right.
Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Ken, one.
Ben, go ahead.
So Andre, you had talked, just trying to think about timing here. And I understand, Martha, I agree with you on simplicity and let's do it. But Andre had talked about trying to get together with the chief and the town manager. I think you said that. Is it worth to try and get everybody together and do this in a few days once we can sort of shape that? Or is that in addition? What's your thought, Andre?
My thought?
Yeah.
My thought would be to pass this tonight and then have the discussion with the chief later. About what further we can do. I mean, from what he's talking about, you know, gangs of 20-year-olds with backpacks and all, if that's a concern, and and our police force is the same as it was with less over the 4th of July weekend. I think we're gonna have to ask our governor for help here, and especially on the 4th of July weekend. But we need to have that discussion. I think
And
we
I
should
think the numbers are also,
I think we
Sorry,
should
you're
have
done.
it as a council. Go ahead, Martha. I think we should have it as a council. That's it. Like
Martha?
next.
no, I didn't do that. I think you did. Thank you.
Okay.
Is there a way do we have to have separate votes on this, or can we wrap the two together? We need separate votes, don't we?
Yes, you do.
All right. You want to, we need to have,
Put this on hold and then do the other one first? Probably procedurally better.
Correct.
I don't have the language for that first one.
Would you like me to phrase the language for the motion?
yes, please.
Please.
So a motion is made to suspend the provisions of Section 409A of the Town Charter for purposes of enacting an appropriate ordinance which is essential to deal with an emergency facing the town involving public health, safety, and/or the general welfare.
So moved.
So moved by Martha. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Andre. Any questions or concerns? All those in favor, Andre?
Aye.
Sven? Aye. Chris?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
I vote in the affirmative. Motion carries 5-0. Now, Martha, your motion is on the floor, I believe. Just for clarity, would you restate the changes in your motion and the changes in the proposed ordinance that you want to make?
My only change was to change the penalty clause to the, is it $50 violation?
Up to.
Up to $50 violation.
Okay. All those in favor, Andre?
I just have a question. Does Molly have any questions from public and emails or?
This is Molly. You have all the comments that I've received so far.
Okay, thank you. I'm just checking because this is a an important item.
That's right. I haven't received any during the meeting.
Thank you.
All those in favor, Andre?
Aye.
Sven?
Aye.
Chris Woolley?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
I'll vote in the affirmative. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, everyone, for that. Next item on the agenda is discuss and act on a request for support of a Senate Bill 2504 net metering. This bill would amend the maximum peak load of allowable capacity for net metering systems in the Block Island Utility District, not exceed a maximum peak load set by the utility district based on its operational characteristics, subject to commission approval.
Ken? I'm
Sorry.
sorry. I apologize, but I guess my question is, does the council support an educational program with the CSOs on Water Street for the weekend? And should we move ahead with that? Or do we not need to vote on it? I'll just do it. What would you like to do?
That's a staffing thing. We don't need to vote on it. We're not telling the chief what to do with his staff.
Yeah, I mean, I think the consensus was to do it. It was a good thing to do. Absolutely.
Okay, then I'll just talk to the chief about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is he still on? Is the chief still on? No, I don't see him here. I had a few more questions. All right, let's move on.
Sorry, thank you.
So we have I have a draft of a letter of support that we could send for this consideration. We got this information from Jeff Wright. I believe Jeff is on with us tonight. As I said, the letter, I'll read I make a motion to send a letter, to the, in support of the Senate Bill 2504 net metering. Purpose of the letter being to support the Black Island Utility District's request to amend the net metering statute, section 39-26.4. At the present time, Black Island has reached a 3% cap mandated under the existing net metering law. Because of the cap, Black Island Utility District has stopped approving net metering projects. The town of New Shoreham supports the proposed amendment to the existing net metering statute. The amendment removes the existing 3% cap and allows the Black Island Utility District to set their own cap that will be based on the system-specific engineering parameters. We are aware that they plan to submit an updated net metering tariff to the Rhode Island PUC for approval once the statute is amended. We know that the Black Island Utility District Board of Commissioners will ensure that the new tariff will be designed to be fair and equitable to all utility district members while promoting the development of customer member owned renewable projects. These revisions to the net metering statute are absolutely necessary to continue the development of renewable energy on Black Island. Town Council supports this legislation. That is my motion is to send this letter in support of this legislation. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Andre. Any discussion or comment?
Just trying to get Martha unmuted here. That's okay.
I'm back. I'm fine. Thank you.
She's good.
Martha, is your hand raised?
No, they muted me and I was trying to get back on.
Okay.
They.
Oh.
Any questions or comments?
I don't know who. No questions.
Nope. I think it's a great program. I'm glad they can move forward with it. I probably appreciate Jeff's work on it too, staying on it. And
all right, all those in favor, Andre?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Ben? Aye. Martha?
Aye.
I vote in the affirmative also. Motion carries 5-0. Jeff, if you're listening, thank you very much for the work, and we look forward to hopefully this getting passed on and getting passed at the legislative level.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
As we said, the next two items on the agenda are not necessary. They're not quite ready for the council to deal with. So I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded by Chris. All those in favor, Andre?
Aye.
Ken, this is Peter.
Pete?
I would like you to accept my letter of resignation. I think Pete Lane would be rolling over in his friggin' grave. I have been doing this for over 20 years. I have been totally crapped on and have not been kept in communication. And my biggest everything is the welfare of the people on this island. And I have been totally screwed. That's it. I'm sorry. My letter to follow. Thank you.
I will not be accepting that, Peter Gimp, so don't even write it.
All right. I'm sorry you feel that way, Pete. We'll certainly take it into consideration. All those in favor of adjourning, Andre?
Aye.
Ben? Aye. Chris?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
I vote in the affirmative. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Ken. Right.
Good night.